Hi, my name is Shane Welsh, and today is December 15th, 2023. I am with the Nebraska Vietnam's Memorial Foundation Share Your Story Project. Bellevue University is a sponsor of the NVVMF Memorial Park Project, and I am at the Bellevue University Military Veterans Service Center with Air Force retired Master Sergeant Ronald Ward, who has agreed to share his story for the Library of Congress Veteran History Project and the Nebraska Vietnam Memorial Park Project. Ronald, let's go ahead and state your full name for me, please.
Ronald Ward.
Thank you. And where were you born at?
Youngstown, Ohio.
Okay. So tell me about your parents and what were their occupations. Did they motivate you to join the military by any chance?
No, not really. My father was never in the service. He was a custodian at one of the big department stores, and he worked there for about 30 years. And my mother was a housewife, and she was a LPN. She got her LPN license. But she was up in age because she was very smart. She spoke fluent Spanish and Italian, and she never went to college, but she did finish high school, and she raised 5 kids, myself and 3 brothers and a sister.
Sounds extraordinary. And smart to pick up the extra language too. It's great. Any of your siblings, were they ever in the military?
Yes, my oldest brother was in the Air Force, and he was a clerical specialist, like a 702.
Okay. Was he career like you were?
No, he got out medically. He was medically retired. He had problems, medical retirements. The next brother, Norman, our first one was named Richard. He was my oldest one. Then there's Norman. He was in the Air Force band for 26 years. So he went in as a trumpet player, and then he graduated to a flute, and later on he played a bright bass, and he was very accomplished, and he was band director when he retired in 26 years.
Sounds like
then there was my sister. She didn't go into service at all. She was in college. And then there was me. I was working full-time and going to school full-time. I had a musical scholarship to Youngstown University. In high school, I played the cello. I started playing the violin at age in the 3rd grade. And I played the violin until I got to 9th grade, then I switched to cello. And I graduated from high school a cello player, and I was nominated to play with the Youngstown Symphony. So I played cello with the Youngstown Symphony for one concert. It was a very, very good thing. And then I got the scholarship to Dana School of Music, part of Youngstown College at the time. That's Youngstown University. And I went there for a semester, majoring in cello and minoring in piano. And I did that for just one semester, and I decided that it was too hard for me. I didn't care for all the academics, because I had to take everything anybody else started as a freshman. I had to take all those subjects. Then I had to take all the music subjects on top of that. I had to take orchestra and theory, and I had to be in a lot of musical things that took a lot of time. So I was working full-time and going to school full-time because I didn't have a full scholarship. I had a partial. And so I had to work 8 hours a day, and I went to school 8 hours. And that didn't leave any time for me to do my major instrument, which required you to practice an hour on your major instrument and 3 hours on your major and 1 hour on your minor. So there's not that many hours in a day. So I couldn't come back at 12 o'clock and start playing the violin or the cello that late at night, and the piano, making a bunch of noise. So it didn't work out for me, so I decided that I didn't want to be in school. They did offer me a full ride if I would stay out and take lessons for 1 semester on the cello. They were going to give me a full ride where I wouldn't have to work anymore. That was in 1959, and I decided I didn't want to do that, so I came. I wanted to be in the Navy, so I went down to the Navy recruiter. He was not in, so I went to the Air Force recruiter. He was in. I enlisted in the Air Force, and I went to Cleveland. Part of to the commissioning program they had there, and there was 21 of us in the class, and they took the top 2, and I was the third one. They didn't take me, and I went in the service and started as a airman basic, and they never called me anymore about my tests or to offer me an officer commission. They could have, but they didn't, and I didn't think about trying to do it. So I went to tech school at Lackland Air Force Base, and then they sent me. I wasn't in tech school then. They sent me to Shepherd Air Force Base for teletype, and I was an honor graduate out of teletype school at Shepherd, and they sent me back to Lackland for crypto, and I graduated from the class at crypto, and I had my choice of assignments, so I decided to go to Germany. So they sent me to Darmstadt, Germany in 1960, and I stayed at Darmstadt, and I was a crypto operator then, and I stayed there for about 6 months, and then they sent me to Zweibrücken, Germany. I worked at a relay center there in teletype, and I did that for about a year. In my military career, I was always involved in music. So I had a band at Shepherd Air Force Base. We played at the USO downtown, and it was a nice band. There was only about 5 of us. And so when I went back to Lackland, I didn't have time to play music, so I just went to the crypto school. And when I went to my first duty assignment at Darmstadt, I didn't have a band there. I sang in the choir at the church choir, because I was always involved in music, so I served in the church choir. And that was in 1960. And later on, when I went to Zweibrücken, I had a singing group there. It was myself playing the piano and 2 other guys. And we played at the club down there, and they decided that they wanted us to tour in the month of December in 1960. So me and 2 other guys were on tour at a lot of the bases in Germany, the smaller bases, and we did that. Then they sent me to England, the Chicksands Air Force Base in 1961. And the Chicksands, I worked at the relay center there, and I had a singing group. I had a band. There was 8 of us. There was 4 instrumentalists and 4 singers. And we were active during the time that the Beatles were starting. So the Beatles came on base. My band was already on base, and we were well known. The Beatles were just starting out, so they weren't well known. So everyone came to see my band and not the Beatles. And that was all right. We didn't care. We played there for a long time. We played in the talent show downtown in Bedford, England. And there was a lot of groups playing Beatles songs and popular English group music. And we were playing songs we got from the States. And there was 8 of us. So we were in this contest that lasted about 6 months. We played all these bands and beat them all. And at the end, they awarded us supposedly a contract, a recording contract in London. But we recorded 33 and the Third album and sent it to London, and they decided that because we were all military, they couldn't sign us any contracts, so we weren't able to do anything with that. But we did record the album, and we had on there a song called Twist and Shout by the Isley Brothers. And after we recorded and sent our stuff to London, the Beatles came out with Twist and Shout. So we say, well, the Beatles took our record and got Twist and Shout and stole it from us, but Beatles were in contact with all kind of people in the States, so they really didn't take it from us. But it's something we used to laugh about. And I had my band there for about 3 years, and during that time I got married to a girl from, well, she says she's from Aruba. She was born in St. Kitts, and she was raised in Aruba. Then she came to England, Bedford, England, and was a nurse's training when I met her in 1961. We married in 1962, and I brought her to the States in 1964. And at that time, we had 2 kids born in England that had dual citizenship, and my oldest daughter was the first one, and then my oldest son were both born in London, England, South Russell. So we came to Offutt in 1964, and I worked in First ACOM. I worked at First ACOM in the communications center here. And in 1965, I was promoted to staff sergeant, and they decided that they were going to send me to Vietnam. They came down with a big list and said, all these people are volunteers to go to Vietnam. And at the end, my last name is Ward, so I was at the end, and they said, Ronald Ward. I said, I didn't volunteer to go to Vietnam, but they had me on this list. So I went home on leave. My mother said, well, if you want to go, Ronnie, you can go. You have 3 brothers in the service, and 2 in the Air Force, 1 in the Navy, and they're not in Vietnam, but I know enough people, you don't have to go to Vietnam if you don't want. So I said, well, I volunteered to come into the service, and if they want me in Vietnam, I'll go. So October 21st, I left on a plane to go to Vietnam, and I got there on the 23rd of October. My birthday was on the 22nd. So I said, well, I missed my birthday this year. I left on the 21st, got there on the 23rd. So I was working at the PAPCO Relay at Thompson Nuit Air Force Base in Vietnam. I had a band there, and we used to play at all the clubs, and we played at the USO. One time we played at the embassy. I was at the embassy in Saigon, and they had a bombing attack downtown Saigon, about 2 blocks from the embassy, and they told us to stop playing, to pack our stuff and go back to the base. So that time we did that. That was in 1965 when they had an attack in Saigon. So my band played all over, and though I was supposed to work 7/24, didn't have any time off schedule, they had to let me off because I had a band that was playing for all the troops, and they didn't like that. But it was good for the morale of the troops, for me and my band, so they had to let me off. So I was here from October 65 to about March of 66, and they needed someone with my clearance to work at Udon, Thailand, at an SSO. So I went to Udon, Thailand, to the SSO, and I was there for about maybe only 4 months, and I came down with gastric enteritis, me and another guy that worked with me, and I was in the hospital there, and they came and said, your father is critically ill. Would you like to go home on emergency leave? I said yes. So in 66, May of 66, I was on emergency leave back to Youngstown, Ohio. My father was critically ill. My brothers came home from the military, 3 brothers, and my sister came up, and we all saw my father. He had a tumor on his brain the size of an egg, and they said it's going to cost a lot of money if you want to operate. And my daddy didn't want an operation, so me and the brothers and the sister and my mother decided we wouldn't operate. There was very little chance that he would make it, and we didn't want to put him through all that. So my mother was a LPN, so she fixed up our house to have my father at home. I had my wife and 2 kids there. 3 kids, yeah, my oldest 3 were there in 1966. And so they all went back to their duty stations, and I was still there. And I re-enlisted in 5 June 1966, and my father died in July. So I put in for humanitarian reassignment to Youngstown. They had a Air Force contingent out there in Vienna, and I put in for that, and they disapproved it and sent me to Westover Air Force Base. And I wasn't happy because all my brothers were in the service. Had left my mother by herself. And had it been, if my father had died a month earlier, I would have just gotten out the service. But as things would have it, he didn't die till the first part of July, and I was still there. And they refused my humanitarian reassignment, sent me to Westover Air Force Base to SSO there. So I worked at Westover from 66 to 68, and I got an assignment to Wheeler Air Force Base in Hawaii. And so I took my family to Hawaii, and I worked at the tunnel there called Kunia. And I did 3 years there. And I had one child born there. So I had two born in England, one born in Ohio, one born in Massachusetts, and one born in Hawaii. And we came back from Hawaii. I had one born in where's it, part of Virginia, Waynesboro, Virginia. So I was still in Hawaii, and I didn't have a group there because I worked full-time downtown. My military job was from 11 to 7, and then I worked from 8 to 5 downtown. I was licensed to sell and service fire extinguishers, so I did that the time I was there. I didn't have a money problem because I made good money there, and I got my Air Force pay. So we did that, and I left there in 71. In 71, I came back to, where'd I go? 71, I left Hawaii. I went to Fort Ritchie, Maryland, and I worked at the JCC, Joint Coordination Center. It's a multi-service organization. And I worked in the comm center there, and our shop was located in ANMCC, which is a tunnel mountain in Maryland. And that's the alternate military command center. If something happened to the president in D.C., they would have went to Fort Ritchie. It's an Army installation. So I worked there from 64 to 60. No, not 64. Well, I worked at Fort Ritchie, and I got an assignment to, am I getting mixed up? I went from Fort Ritchie to, I came from England to Fort Ritchie, 71. And then from 71, I went to Taipei, Taiwan. And I worked at a base there called Shilinko Air Station on Taipei, Taiwan. And I stayed there for about 3 years. I had a band there. We never really sang out. We were just getting started when I left Taiwan and came back to Offutt. And I was here at Offutt until 77 or 76. And then I got an assignment to Germany, a place called Kalkar. It's near the Dutch border. They didn't have a base there. I was on a Luftwaffe Germany base, and we had 3 barracks on the base. And that's why I spent 2 years. I lived downtown in Goch, which is Goch, Germany. And that's at Kalkar. I didn't have a group or anything there. I just worked and did what I had to do. And I left Germany and came back here in 76. Yeah. And then I stayed here and retired in 80 from Offutt Air Force Base. So that's about my military career.
You've had a very distinguished career, especially in your musical background. So the Air Force was fully behind your musical career?
Yeah, they were glad that I had a group, especially in Vietnam, because they needed people to provide entertainment for the troops, and that's what my group did.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to be recognized like you were, play for all the USOs and
Yeah.
do a tour in Germany. and
Yeah, I did a
Europe.
tour in Germany. It was only 3 of us, but
Wow.
they wanted us to do a tour because at all the sites they weren't seeing any musical people. So we went to all the smaller sites and played at the USO at the service clubs.
Nice. And then during your time in Vietnam, of course, I'm sure the troops really appreciated live music.
I haven't met anybody that saw my group or me in Vietnam in 1965 or 66, but I do have some paperwork that I took from Vietnam, well, from Thailand, because I was working the teletype circuit from Yunnan, Thailand to Tan Son Nhut. And a friend of mine said, don't send any more traffic because we're under attack. And I didn't know who I was talking to at the other end. When he came back, he said, okay, we were under mortar attack and they hit the base. They had never hit Tan Son Nhut. It was sort of recognized thing that they didn't hit Tan Son Nhut because they had a lot of civilians that worked on Tan Son Nhut. But they mortared the base, and my friend asked me who was on the other end, and I told him who I was, and he was the lead singer in my band at Tan Son Nhut. So I said, well, it's too bad. He didn't tell me names of anybody that had been injured or anything, because before I could get on to him again, talk to him again, I was put in the hospital, and I never saw him again.
I'm sure that happened to quite a few of your friends while you're over there.
Yeah.
See him while you're there.
And then you don't know what happens to them. So even people in my band, I never heard from them again. So I don't know how they fared.
Now, with the help of Facebook and other social media, have you been able to find anybody, your long lost friends?
I had
people you served with?
one guy that started my band with me. His name was Carpus Radcliffe. He was my guitar player. I was the leader of the group, but he ran the group. I don't know how that worked, because I paid everybody when we ever had an engagement. I paid them because I was good with money. And when we went out to play, he called the shots. He said, we're going to sing this song, and this person's going to sing. And I said, okay, it didn't bother me. And I met him in 1961, and he was in my band there until 64. And we were still in contact until 3 weeks ago. He passed away in Denton, Texas.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he was the oldest friend that I had, and he just passed away. And he and I spent a lot of time together, and so he'll be sorely missed by me and my family, because we all knew him and his wife and his kids. I went to see him 3 months ago. I went to Texas. My daughter took me to see him in Denton, and she was in Corpus Christi, but she drove to Denton, Texas to see Radcliffe. He was in the hospital, and he was not in good shape, and he never recovered from the problems he was having. But he's my oldest friend, and now he's gone. So that's what happens when you live so long. All your friends are gone. You probably don't make new friends, but that's what happens. So.
And you said he died recently, didn't 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago he passed away. They don't know what actually caused this problem, but he had brain problems with his brain. There was something happened with his brain, and he was having strokes. And they did a lot of things to him, and he wasn't able to recover. So they just unhooked all the stuff that was keeping him alive because he wasn't talking, he wasn't eating, he wasn't speaking. And they decided that it's best to let him go. But I saw him 3 months ago, he was talking, and he wasn't walking, but he was talking, and he talked to me. So I had some pictures that I sent to his family of him being here in Omaha with me and my family.
Wow.
Because they're going to have some kind of one-way ceremony. We'll have a video display of his life. So I sent stuff that I had of him to his daughter, who was in charge of the burial ceremony.
I bet they appreciated you greatly for providing that information.
Yeah,
because they would have never known.
No.
Probably of his past with you and the band, you know.
Yeah. Well, they knew
some
about
clarity
the band.
For him.
They knew the band, but his wife did. But the other kids, they weren't even born then when we had the band, or they were too young to understand about it. But I sent that stuff to, her name was Tara. He has a son and a daughter. And his wife is Scottish. Her name is Margaret. And so, I don't do anything now. I'm just retired, and I am mainly used to transport my wife and I to medical appointments. And I do things. I have 3 kids in the area. I have my oldest son, who was a linguist in the Navy, and he's here. And then my daughter, Tanya, she's a representative of the learning community, elected by the state to be in the learning community. So she wants to do and be more involved in politics. And then there's my daughter, Nikki. She's the baby, and she doesn't do anything. She just lives with my brother, or my son, and they have an apartment together. My older daughter, Pat, lives in Texas. She works for Enron, and she has a good job. And then after her is my son, Junior. Ronald Jr. is a retired warrant officer in the Navy.
Impressive.
He was in intelligence, and he retired as a warrant officer, and then he went into civil service, and now he's a SES employee in charge of Hawaii and some things in the Far East. I don't know what all he's in charge of, but he's equivalent to a 1-star general.
Wow.
So he's a big wig to me. And then there's his other brother, Tony. Tony's 1 year younger than Ronald, and he was a linguist, but he got out and he never did anything with his linguistic ability. And now he's working here in the area. And that's about all of them. Pat, Junior, Tony, Tanya, Renee. Oh, there's Renee. Renee is next to the baby daughter. She is married to an Italian. They have 1 son, and they live in Virginia. And she runs a wine touring business called Cork and Keg. And it's been quite lucrative for them. They tour a lot of the wine plantations or businesses in the area, and they take a group of people. She has a big van that holds 11 people, and it's all decorated up, and she goes to these wine businesses and she takes her guests, and they all have a good time at these things that she provides for them. And she has a real good business, and her husband, he's a financier. He runs the money, and she runs a hospitality side house. So they've been real lucky and real good with their finances. So they're doing well. All my kids are doing well. And in fact, they do so well that my oldest son decided that he's going to buy me a home. So he bought a home for me and his mother. I didn't want to accept it. But he said, God has been good to me, and my job as a good son is to provide for my mother and father. So I'm buying you a home. He bought the home, and then a year later he bought us a car. This is your car. You go down, get your car, whatever you want. And so he bought us a home and a car. and he'll be home next week from Hawaii, and because we're moving, so he wants to help us with the move. You know, I'm 84, and my wife is 80, so I don't like to think of myself as old until I try to do something.
Right.
And then I said, well, you know, I used to be able to do this, but I can't do it anymore. And I forget things. Like I went to the apartment that we're moving into called Richmond Village, and we haven't moved into the apartment yet, but the people that are in the apartment said I could come up and look at the apartment because I have a house full of furniture, and moving from a house with 2 bedrooms and all kind of furniture to an apartment is going to be quite a move where you have to deplete more than 50% of your own, what you have. So I went to the apartment, and they let me come up and see the apartment. There's a lady and her mother in the apartment, and I had my camera, so I was taking pictures, and I took a couple still shots, and I said, well, I'm gonna do a video. So I put on my video, I thought, and I took pictures for about a half an hour, and then I came home and wanted to show my wife what I took, and I don't have no pictures because I didn't turn the camera on. So I don't know how that happened, but I said, well, you know, I was trying to do the right thing. I took pictures and I saw it all, but the camera didn't see anything because I didn't hit the button to turn the camera on. I said, well, that's the kind of thing that happens when you get old. You do things like that. And my son said, Daddy, how long are you going to drive? I said, I don't know. I have some problems driving. Not real severe. I have a problem with my left eye. I have to get shots in my eye because I have macular degeneration, and I have macular ischemia. One of them is blood in the eye, next one is fluid in the eye. And I still see fairly well because my right eye is 20/20. My left eye is about 20, maybe 40, 20/70. When I take an eye test, I can see the big letters, and then they go down to the 3rd row, and I'm looking with my left eye, that's a bad eye, and I don't see anything. So I have to go get shots, and the shots are helping with my problem, but it's not eliminating it. And when I started getting my shots, I said, well, I'm getting these shots, is my eye better? They said, well, your shots are to stop the bleeding in your eye, because blood will blind you.
Yeah.
And so he said, we may never cure you. You may be getting shots the rest of your life, but at least you won't go blind.
Is this at the VA you're getting treated?
No, I go to a private doctor.
Got it. Did you have any injuries or illnesses related to the service?
I have ischemic heart disease that they gave me because of my Vietnam service, Agent Orange.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm 100% disabled for ischemic heart disease.
Good.
Then I have high blood pressure, I have diabetes, and I have, but those are the main things. There's some minor things wrong with me, but there's nothing that I get a disability for.
Right.
So I get 100%, and they just increase my disability, and they were paying me for ischemic heart disease and sugar, diabetes, but never paid me for high blood pressure. And then they came out with something recently that said reapply because high blood pressure is something that they're giving you now for. And so I applied for high blood pressure, and they said, yes, you have high blood pressure. We're going to increase your disability, not by much, maybe by $40 a month. And they didn't go back to when I first applied with high blood pressure. They didn't go to the beginning when I applied. They just said, from the time you applied this time, we'll give you disability for high blood pressure. And I said, okay, that's better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're getting taken care of. Sounds like.
Yeah. I'm satisfied with the military and what they've done for me.
Good. I wanted to ask you, a lot of veterans from the Vietnam era had a lot of problems after their tour, especially the combat veterans, but do you think it changed you at all in any way? Your
No,
experience?
no, because I was not in combat. I was in the war zone at Tonsanute. They never hit Tonsanute while I was there. I was in such an area where we had weapons outside the comm center, but we didn't have a personal weapon assigned to anybody that worked in the comm center. You know, they worried about Air Force people. I went to M16 training, but in the training, they say, well, you people are not trained for combat. And we were in formation. They shot a flare up, and everybody in formation looked up and said, yeah, all you are dead because you looked up, you blinded yourself, and then all the enemy had to do was just shoot you. You'd sit in ducks. So they said, well, Air Force people are not really, if you're not trained to be in combat. I'm in communications. I had nothing to do with combat. So when I went there, they had weapons outside the comm center, but you weren't assigned a weapon. They locked them up.
Wow.
So that people wouldn't go over there and get the weapon and go crazy. So my service in Vietnam did not affect me personally. I don't have PTSD or none of the ailments. I was never shot at. They did have a plastic explosive on the base, but I was living downtown in Saigon because they asked all E5 and above to move out of the base, live downtown in Saigon in the community. So I lived down there in the community, and they blew a hole in the front gate at the base. I was only about 3 blocks from the base, and I wasn't working that day. And my friend was worked in the flight line, and he was going to base on a bicycle, and he was about a block away from the base when they blew the plastic explosive up, knocked him off his bike, and he got off and ran to the base. They wouldn't let him on. They said, you can't go on, nobody can come in, nobody can leave. So the place is under emergency, go back home. So he came back home. He was kind of shook up, and he said, they won't let me on the base. I can't go to work. And I guess he stayed home a couple of days, and then they didn't call him. I don't know how he got back to base. He just went back and it was open. So he went and reported to his job, and then they let him go to work, and he was all right, I think. Because when I left Vietnam to go to Thailand, I never saw him again.
Oh.
But he and I stayed, there was 3 of us that lived in a house, and I never saw either of the 2 guys that I lived with after I left Vietnam.
What would you say your favorite thing you did in your total career in the Air Force?
Favorite thing? Music.
Absolutely.
I had bands everywhere I went, or singing groups. You know, I had a singing group right here at Offutt, and I started the group, and there was 4 of us, and I was the only one that was married, and the rest of them ran around together. I wouldn't run with them, but I was in the group, and we had a talent contest here. We won bass talent contest. They sent us to Lincoln for a worldwide tour, and when we were in Lincoln, they decided that there was 4 of us, but they had an extra guy, and so they said, we can't take everybody to sing in the group, so one person has to go back. And they said, I want you, Ward, and this other guy to interview to see which one we're going to keep. I said, you're not interviewing me for nothing. I said, I started this group, you guys are all together, you know how I sing, and if you don't want me to sing, I won't sing. So they said, well, if you don't interview, we can't use you in the group. So I packed my bags and came back to Omaha, and my wife saw me. She said, hey, what's the matter? I said, well, they decided that they wanted me to interview to be in the group. They have one guy that was supposed to be a lead singer, and now he wants to come back in the group. And so they wanted him back, and they wanted me to interview to be in the group. And I said, I'm not interviewing. And I came back. So she said, it's too bad. But they were a good group. It was a very good group. I enjoyed them. And when they came back, they said, Ward, we did you wrong. We never should have done what we did, but would you come back to the group because we need you, because somebody else is not going to sing. And I like to sing so much, I said, okay, man, you know, y'all did me wrong, but I'm gonna come back to the group. So I came back in and sang with them until I left here. It was a good group.
Was that while you were still in or after you retired?
I was still in.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, and that's before I went to Vietnam.
Okay. So, as far as your jobs that you had in addition to your music, was that pretty easy for you?
Teletype. I like teletype because we saw a lot of messages come through everywhere I went. I was even in teletype of crypto. When I was in England, I was a teletype operator in the Pathco Relay, but we had crypto gear in the comm center. And they decided that I was working, and I worked so good, making 8 balls with teletype.
What is that? What does that
8
mean?
balls, we take a piece of teletype paper, it's about that big, about that wide, and it's real thin, just like paper tape.
Okay.
And you get messages in that have hole punches in the tape, and that's, you have to learn how to read the holes.
Wow.
So they have what's called a flap, which means that they have more communications and more tapes coming in than you can handle. So when I say more, I mean the tape comes out of what's called a TD, and it's got holes punched in it, and it just comes out. And if somebody's job is there to take the tape, catch the tape, and it's a relay center, so it has routing symbols on it, which means areas that you're to send the tape to, and you have to know where the routing symbols are. And so in the relay, they have maybe 50 TDs with tapes coming out of them all the time. And if you don't have somebody there to catch it, it just comes on the floor. When you have a flap, they had a flap, which means that tape was running 24/7, and we didn't have enough, they weren't fast enough to take all the tape. So I walked into the relay floor, and it's taped that high. So I just go in, I look at the tape. It's a place where you look at the tape and know it's the end of one message to another one. It's called letters. When you see a bunch of letters all over the punches, all over the tape, you know that's the end. You tear it off and you make an 8. You have to roll it in the figure of an 8. And you put it in this hand, that hand, this hand, that hand, and you make it like an 8 ball. And then you put it through, and then you put it on the send bank, because the relay, I was on receive bank, and then they have a send bank. They take the 8 balls and they put them in a TD, and they send them all over the world. So when you work in the relay, you receive messages in on the tape, you put it on a dial joint to the send bank. The send bank takes them off, puts them in a TD, and sends them wherever they're going. People don't know about teletype because they don't have teletype anymore. If I see people on the base, they say, "What'd you do?" I said, "I was a teletype operator." "What do you mean teletype?" I said, "Well, before computers, it was teletype. When I was in the service, they asked me to go into computers. He gave me an option. I said, I don't want to go to computers. I know everything about teletype. Why do I want to be a computer operator? Because I couldn't see far enough in advance to know what computers were going to be. It was all teletype at the time. So I said, well, I know teletype. I understand teletype. I like it, so I've always done. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Were any of these messages like intercepted messages that you had to transcribe?
They were messages about all kind of things, intelligence that happens in the community.
So from one service to another, or mainly Air Force messages?
Mainly Air Force.
Okay.
Air Force intelligence. But, you know, we don't know where the messages came from. We didn't read them all. But we knew that they were messages, and they were all classified. They did have unclassified. In fact, I was working in the relay, handling the information, and I went back to crypto. They said, well, we want you to work in crypto when they have equipment there that codes messages. So I went back in there, and I liked that. And I was looking at the circuit one day, and I saw a message come in, and it was a classified message, but it was going somewhere where it shouldn't have gone. And I told my supervisor, and he said, well, okay, we'll intercept that. So they intercepted it. And I didn't think nothing of it, but they said that was a very good thing that you did, because it wasn't my job to to do that. My job was to handle the equipment, not to monitor messages. But I saw it, and I told my supervisor, and they decided they're going to put me in for airman of the quarter. And made a big thing out of it. I didn't think it was such a big thing, but it was something that I did. But I've always been security conscious. I thought when I get out of the military, security is really going to be in trouble because they don't have me. So all my kids worked in security. My oldest son, he was in the Navy. He had a security position. The youngest son, he was in the Navy. He had a security position as a linguist. And then my daughter, I had one daughter that went in. She also worked in intelligence. They all worked in intelligence. Because it was easy for them to get a clearance because I was stationed all these bases that I went to, and they knew what I did and where I was working. So they all got security clearances. And
you probably had a high one, didn't you, because you were young?
Yeah. That's why they sent me out of Vietnam to Thailand, because of my clearance.
So you would say they joined the service because of what you did?
Well, yeah, they were easy to get a clearance because of me, because I had a high clearance, so they were easy to get a high clearance on.
That's good recruiting right there.
When I got married in England, they kept me. I couldn't get married for a year because they had to do a clearance on my wife before they would let me get married. If I got married without the clearance, I would have had to leave the comm center, and they would have put me on some kind of day job. I didn't want that, so I just waited while they were doing an investigation on her.
Right. What would you say your most unfavorite thing or the worst thing that happened from your military experience, other than the injuries and things like that?
Well, the worst thing that happened to me, I was here at Alfred Air Force Base. I made E4. I was E4. I made E5 before they sent me to Vietnam, and I had the singing group here, and I ran with a bunch of guys, and I went to the Class 6 store and got some wine, and me and four guys was in the car drinking wine, and then I went into the service club, and I left them there in the car drinking wine, and I was playing the piano, and somehow they left the service club. They left the car, took the wine into the service club, and it had a label on it that was able to trace me as having bought the wine. So I bought the wine and left them with it. They brought the wine in the service club, and the service club director found the wine bottle, and they called me in. They said, "Ward, were you drinking in the service club?" I said, "Yesterday." I said, "No." They said, "Well, did you buy a bottle of wine at the club where they sold wine?" I said, "Yes, I did." They said, "You didn't bring it into the club?" I said, "No, but I did buy it, and I left it with some guys." They said, "Well, somebody brought the wine into the club, threw the wine bottle in the trash. We found it. It's a punishable Article 15 punishment for drinking in the service club. You're not allowed to drink there." So they said, "We didn't know that it was you that had bought the wine. You weren't drinking." I said, "I drank outside, but I wasn't drinking in the club." And they said, "Okay, we are going to give you an opportunity to rectify this." They said, "You get 3 guys, bring them in, and we'll give you a meeting. We'll have a conference, and we'll tell you about why you're not allowed to drink in the club, and that'll be the end of it. Otherwise, we'll have to turn you in as having been drinking in the club. You'll get Article 15, and you'll lose your E5 stripe." But I knew the lady that was in the club. She knew me, but she didn't know when she got the club, when she got the bottle, that it was involving me, because the dummies that was out there that drank the wine bought the wine into the club. Why would they do that? All they had to do was leave the bottle in the car. They brought it into the club. They traced it back to me. I almost got busted. If I hadn't known Miss Moon, who was in charge of the rec center, if I hadn't known her, then I would have got busted. I wouldn't have got my stripe. Then they sent me to Vietnam after that. But I had to walk on pins and needles because I had bought that wine and they bought it in the club. And I could have got busted. So that was probably my scariest moment that had to do with my career.
So you did all right then, if that was the scariest.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had a fun and great career, and especially the music industry, because it wasn't just for you. It was, a lot of people got entertained by you and your groups because of your talents. So
yeah,
that's a big thing for morale. I remember being over in Iraq when the live music came to the bases. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
my son was in Iraq and Iran and Iraq. That's where I got this from. He was over there working at the embassy, and so he brought back one of these from his mother and one from me. So this is Stone script.
Oh yeah.
And it has my name here, and then it's in another language here, and something else there. But he spent 2 tours over there in Iraq and Afghanistan, not Iran. Iraq.
He might have been on the border of Iran a couple
Yeah,
times.
well, he knows all about that stuff. He spent a lot of time over there, and that's why they use him the way they do in the military, because he has this experience.
Good.
He said, I'm over here and I'm not in any danger, but then I looked on the side and he got a 45 strapped to his hip. I said, yeah, you're not in no danger. Where you got that? And now he has to have a group of people that protect him everywhere he goes. He has these group of people that protect him.
Wow.
Especially overseas. He always has.
Sounds important.
Yeah, he's pretty important.
After you retired, you stayed around here. Were you in bands after you retired?
Here, when I retired in 1980, I didn't have any bands in 1980. From then I worked 2 jobs because I had 6 kids. And my military pay wasn't enough to support 6 kids. So I worked at janitor in SAC headquarters building. So in the daytime, I ran the comm center down there in the underground. And at night, I'll scrub the stairs as a janitor. That's what you do. You do what you have to do to make it. So I had 2 jobs. And I had a heart attack in 1980. I got out in 80, so it was 1980, 85. I had a heart attack. And I had to stop working then because I was fortunate because when I had my heart attack, my heart healed itself. So when I was having a blockage, my heart was making veins to go over and get the blood from the side of the heart that was blocked. And so when I went to the hospital and I went to have a heart catheterization, after I had the catheterization, they said, yeah, 2 things happened. You had a heart attack and you had a recovery from the heart attack because your heart repaired itself.
Wow.
So they said, you'll be on aspirin the rest of your life, but you shouldn't have any more problem. Even though I had blockages in my heart, it was 100% blockage when I had the heart attack on one of my veins, and then I had some other veins that were partially blocked. But from that time to today, I've never had any more problem with my heart.
Good. And that was 1990? So
That was 1990, yeah, 1990.
So you had to slow down and stop work?
Yeah.
Or did you?
Yeah, I still worked,
Okay.
but I didn't work 2 jobs. I slowed down to just one position because my wife had a daycare in our home, so she was making money there, and I didn't have to work 2 jobs. I just worked one.
If you were talking to a new recruit today, what would you tell her as far as advice or inspiration?
Well, I would say that in today's society, it would be good if everybody was required to go in the military. not to make a career of it, but just to go 4 years, because it does so much to make you more knowledgeable, a better person, teaches you a lot of things that you don't get if you don't go into service. So I think it's a good idea for everybody to go into service. I tried to get all my daughters to go in, and only one of them went in. But I think it's something that's really advantageous to anybody that goes in. And if they decide they want to stay, they can stay. But it's not for everybody. Just like college, it's not for everybody. Everybody can't go to school, and they don't have what it takes to get a degree.
Yeah, unfortunately, today's kids, most of them don't even qualify for service.
Yeah.
They're so out of shape, or mentally they're not prepared or educated enough. It's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. I was glad that I had 3 of my 6 go into service.
You did it right. You're one of the best recruiters out there.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we skipped over that you wanted to cover in your interview that you feel is important? 'Cause I know we covered a lot of things. We skipped around a little bit, but I want to make sure and capture your story the best possible.
Okay. To the best of my knowledge, when I related my experience, I think I covered the years pretty well. I might have had a gap here and there, but everywhere I was stationed, I think I mentioned, from Germany to Thailand, to Taiwan, to Vietnam, to Hawaii, to Fort Ritchie, to Offutt, and Shepherd and Lackland. So I think that pretty much covered my career. And outside of my regular job, which was a teletype operator and a crypto 291 and a 29X1, 29XO. XO was teletype, X1 was crypto. So I covered that, I think, pretty well.
Good.
Family life, I could mention a lot about the family, but I just gave you a brief idea about my family.
Sounds like you raised your kids right.
Well,
They're all doing well.
My wife did a lot of work on raising the kids because I was gone.
Yeah.
I worked 8 hours on my military job and 4 to 5 every day on my part-time job.
Nice.
And that's how I was able to raise all the kids, because she wasn't working. She didn't start working until my youngest child went into school. So she was there to take care of all the kids.
Wow.
So I never had to worry about having a babysitter or something, because her job was taking care of the family, and she did that well.
Sounds remarkable.
Yeah.
Now, as far as any significant awards that you got
That I got.
during your service, including anything you got for your musical abilities?
I never got anything from my musical ability. They never recognized me as having done anything musically in the military. Even
That's
though,
a shame.
I did it in Vietnam, I did it in England, I did it in Taiwan. I had a group, but we didn't sing out anywhere. But there was things that I did that I thought probably helped the troops, but I never got any recognition for it, so that was all right.
How about just regular awards for your service?
I just got the normal awards. I got the Vietnam Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, and regular service medals that everybody gets. I don't think I got anything special.
That's too bad you didn't get recognized for your musical talent, because very few people get selected to do what you did.
Yeah.
I know people that spent in the Army in their band career, and their chest was bigger than mine.
Yeah.
Some of them, as far as the ribbons.
My brother was in the Air Force Band. He had a chest full of ribbons, and I don't know what all he got, but he wasn't in Vietnam, so I don't think he got any wartime awards, but he got all kinds of medals from his band service.
Your friends that got drafted as opposed to you who volunteered or got voluntold, but you're already, you're already in. That was a career decision for you. Did you say some of your friends you connected with that maybe were on the combat side, if you had any? Did you see anything different with them?
I didn't know any of my friends. Once I left the combat area, I haven't run across any of them. I did have some friends that were in Vietnam, but they weren't suffering any kind of problems. They were fortunate because they were Air Force.
Right.
Most Air Force people didn't fight.
The
ones that did fight, they were trained to fight.
Yes.
But if you're in communications or something like that, you weren't trained to fight.
Training is the key right there.
Didn't mean you couldn't fight. If the base was attacked and you were there, they would give you a gun and sign your position. Then you did the best you could do.
Yeah. I was a transportation platoon leader in Iraq. Those big heavy equipment transporters built to haul the M1 tanks and other heavy up-armored personnel equipment and engineer equipment. And our gun truck folks who did our escorts were all Air Force.
Oh, is that right?
One of them was a reserve Air Force unit out of California, and the second one was an active duty one. And they were very good at what they did. I bet it was kind of a shock to them probably. It's like, hey, where's the airfield? Oh no, you're running gun trucks support. They were brave, they were good, they were well trained, so.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they didn't seem to mind their job. I'm sure they would have rather done something on the airfields.
Right.
I didn't have any problem with them. They were great people.
Yeah, that's good. I always ask my son, who do you have working for? He said, I got a colonel that works for me and some other military people. Once a week, they're required to wear their uniform. But the uniforms they wear today are nothing like what I'm used to. I say, well, what they have people dressed in the military are Beetle Baby outfits. That's what I think of. When I go on the base, I can't find nobody's rank. The rank is here, and it's hard to see. When you had them on your sleeve, it was very easy to see. And they dressed in uniforms, not camouflage suits.
Yeah.
And that's what they wear now. There's no gig line. Their haircuts is any way they want it to be. Their shoes aren't shine. The military has deteriorated to what you see out there. If we were in war, they're ready for war. But this is not a war zone here.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I was part of that transition. I'm sure the colonel here was too. And I joined in '85 when it was all spit shine your boots.
Yeah.
You could tell whatever everybody's branch and rank was.
Right.
It was obvious. But
today you can't tell. I go on the base and I'm a military man, so I'm looking for your rank. I want to know your rank. I'm looking at you and I say, well, is this an officer or not? My wife ran a daycare center out of my home, so people would come there in uniform, and she said, well, I got a new client, the Air Force. I said, what's their rank? She said, rank? I don't know about rank. I said, yeah, I do. If they got a rank, if they're in the service, what kind of rank? She said, I don't know, and I don't care. If you're a general, she might call you sergeant. She never cared about rank, but I'm always rank conscious, so I'm talking about rank all the time.
Good. If we haven't left out anything, then Ron, I want to thank you very much for your service and for sharing your story. And I hope your family and friends and you really enjoy this when you get to see the link to it.
Oh, well, that'd be nice. I'm real glad to come over here and give you an interview. I hope I did well with it and it takes well on the camera.
I think you did great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and your consideration, and you have a great day.
Thank you.